Okay, Kevin Proto here with Locals Supporting Locals for another segment of the Heartbeat of the Okanagan. And we just wrapped up an event that took place at the Days Inn Conference Center here. And this is in regards to the small business tax that the Trudeau government, the Liberal government, is wanting to implement across Canada to small businesses. And needless to say, a lot of small businesses, a lot of people are concerned right across Canada. So we came down, we filmed this event, and we just like to always put out there, Dan always did a great job, and he represented himself. He wasn't actually really pushing the Conservatives, which I do appreciate, because Locals Supporting Locals, we are nonpartisan. We do not support party politics in any way, shape, or form, because it does not represent the constituents. It toes the party line here. So again, great job by Dan Albas there, and the White Kennedy group did a good job breaking it down. But I'm here with Chris, and sorry, what's your last name? Struthers. And you started a Facebook page and a website, Defend Small Business .ca across Canada, and within a few weeks here, you've already hit over 5,300 members on Facebook, but you've also, how many views have you had?
2 million, over 2 million now.
2 million views.
Over 2 million views.
Yeah.
5,700 followers as of today, and 30,000 hits on the website.
Okay, so what were your thoughts? As we can see, people and businesses of every walk here, just like here in Penticton here, are concerned. So what were your thoughts on what you saw take place here tonight?
A lot of people concerned, a lot of people from a lot of different types of businesses, lots of different types of walks of life. Certainly a range of political views. They may be galvanized in one way or another now with their businesses under attack, but people from all walks of life, all different political views, have been really rallying to this issue, because it hurts, it affects a lot of people greatly, it affects a lot of businesses greatly, and it's going to have a real impact on communities if small businesses take such a hit. We really do. We contribute a lot to our communities. We employ people. We donate a lot of things to community causes, and to be labeled tax cheats and attacked by government like this has been very upsetting for a lot of us. So it's rallying a lot of people. The message is getting out. We are certainly getting, my sense is that this is a real grassroots movement that crosses all kinds of boundaries. And this grassroots movement, my impression is it's very quickly turning into a grass fire. It's taking off.
Well, that's it. And so just to point out here, because I did talk to Chris prior to the event, and this introduction is going before the event. So what I like to always do is point this out. We're going to edit the video as very little as possible. We don't like to leave raw footage here, but you have no party politics. You're completely non-partisan on this issue, right?
No, sir. I am not stumping for any particular party. I'm stumping against a bad policy from the sitting government at this time.
Yes, and so some of the things that were pointed out here is, and we've seen this with not only the Liberals, but Conservatives too, where it doesn't matter what the Canadian people say, they still move ahead and do it anyways, right? And so one of the suggestions out there was for small businesses to connect across Canada, and even if we could get 10% here, we can't say before October 2nd here, but in a very short time here, to boycott and shut down their businesses either for a few hours to show unity right across Canada, or shut down for the day, put posters in your shop. What were your thoughts on that?
I think that small businesses are upset enough and motivated enough that you're going to see some kind of civil disobedience. You're going to see some kind of coordinated movement. One of the tricky things with the grassroots movement is just like the blades of grass on your lawn, different parts of the lawn want to do different things at different times. Trying to get that perfect uniform lawn from one end to the other is a challenge. That is one challenge that a grassroots movement does face. But I think in the age of social media, a lot more things are possible than in the past. So watch this space, Kevin. Watch this space.
Well, that's the thing is a lot of what's being done here, and they divide us. So some people are affected by this, and so they're in, and then there's other people that are not affected by this right away, so they don't care. So like let's say if you're one of the big wigs working at one of the multi-corporations that are not affected by this, you don't care. So you won't want to participate in this. If you're working for one of them, maybe you won't want to care.
And that's why it's so important for small business owners and people who are affected by this, employees of small businesses, people who have invested in small businesses, get the word out, talk to friends, talk to family, talk to neighbors, talk to people that co-workers, spread the message. We're not just a bunch of wealthy fat cats from rubbing our hands all the way to the Bahamas on our steamship line. We're hardworking members of the community, and our messages will resonate a lot louder than anything that comes from Ottawa once community's involved. And I think that's what's behind your push for local supporting locals.
Absolutely.
When people talk to one another and we work together as communities, great things can happen.
Well, that's the thing is it may not affect you. This issue may not affect you today, but there's other issues. And I've been involved with a lot of different issues, from GMOs to smart meters to 3 Mile Beach here to and people tend to jump in, or like all the zoning amendments that have been throughout our community for development, and so everybody wants everybody to band together with them when they got a problem, but then when you got a problem, then they're just like, oh well, that's not me. So now is the time, folks, here, for all of us to band together. Truly, local businesses, local farmers, doctors, you name it, are the true backbone of every community. They are the heartbeat of our community. So we all need to get together on this, and I really like this whole shut the business down for either a couple hours. I prefer the day. And no boycotting, no striking, don't go on the streets. If anything, hold community picnics. Celebrate, because that's the thing that they look for, So if you start protesting out in the street, start throwing rocks and everything else like that, and trust me, you will have provocateurs to do that, that's when they send out the police, and then that's when the division really starts here. Instead, shut down your business and let's set up a picnic or something like that, a barbecue, and make it a potluck and come down.
You're exactly right. People can express their democratic opinions in very diverse ways, and small business owners and people related to small business and employed by small business, they sort of may well have a different way of showing that, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. Watch this space. Thank you for.
Well, here's one more idea here too. Is because I said, like in my little 2-minute speech, there is a tax revolt. So maybe if we can't get everybody to maybe not necessarily shut down their business, but let's say all the small businesses decide not to charge tax that day.
It'll be interesting to see. I would certainly want to talk to my accountant about what the penalties might be.
Yeah.
But if there are legal ways and means to withhold or delay your taxes or hold them up in adjudication, whatever it might be. Obviously, I don't advocate breaking any laws. Laws, even if they're bad laws, you gotta, unless there's extreme circumstances. But certainly pay your taxes that are owed.
It's just a thought,
But if there's way you can delay your taxes, throw them into adjudication, clog up the system, I think a lot of small business owners will be on board with that. And I'll be very interested in talking to some tax professionals if these changes go through. What legal avenues do we have to fight back in that method? There's all kinds of things.
Well, that's it. Even though it may go into place, doesn't mean it's going to stay there. So we can continue doing things to stop this. So, and I'm just showing you this out to everyone here. I'm looking to work with Chris here to put together another event on this to raise more awareness, even if it's past October 2nd here, so that we can properly educate people and again talk about different ways that we can try to stop this or get this unity working here. So follow localsupportinglocals.ca.com. Find us on Facebook, Local Supporting Locals, and also you can find Chris here on
defendsmallbusiness.ca.
And on Facebook?
Facebook/defendsmallbiz, where it's BIZZ.
BIZZ. So join both of our groups here, and so this way when we put together this event, and we want to do a live stream from it too, so hopefully we can do this. Don't hold us accountable if we don't do it, but the one thing I did notice on the way over here is there was a Bees game, so and our local community loves our local hockey team.
Oh, yeah.
So I can see why the attendance wasn't more. as well. And again, our farmers, wineries, everybody's working hard right now. So yeah, follow us and watch this whole event in full, and join us on our Facebook pages here. So thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Take care.
I'm a member of Parliament from Central Okanagan, Okanagan. I'm not a stranger to this area, not a stranger to many of you. But again, if this is the first time we've had a chance to meet, welcome. Really happy to have everyone here today. Tonight's town hall is really actually to serve two purposes. It's to bring up awareness with some of the government policies, but it's also a chance for individuals to voice concerns and to have those concerns heard. I actually sit on the Finance Committee in the House of Commons. It's the committee that receives all legislation that pertains to taxes, to fiscal policy and whatnot. So the discussion that we've been having this week is mainly centered on the changes that Minister Morneau has put forward regarding small businesses, or CCPCs, or Canadian Controlled Private Corporations. Now, we actually are very blessed today that we have a few professionals here. We have Peter McIntosh as well as Chris Brown from White Kennedy. They are here to give just some of their understanding of the tax changes. They're arm's length. I just asked the gentlemen if they wouldn't mind. We have not collaborated. I have not seen their materials. I really just wanted to have some local people who are experts who can give an overview from their sense. I should also point out that they are here more as a public service, so educating the public. If you want specific tax advice to your own situation, you'd better book an appointment with them or with someone else at their office. So. I just also wanted to mention we do have a gentleman, Kevin. Kevin, can you just stand up and wave at everyone? Kevin shows up at a lot of town hall meetings. He's a professional, and he's asked to film tonight. The only thing I've asked him is because I really am a big believer that people want to be able to say that, to their friends and family, to their neighbors, to their fellow citizens, their opinions. But not everyone feels comfortable when you have a camera on you. So if you do not want to have it, if you could just wave at Kevin, just say, please don't film me directly. He would like to have the interaction. And as far as I'm concerned, this is an open town hall. We want to make it as open as possible. We also have Adrina from Richard Kaning's office. Can you just wave your hand? So she also works at the Member of Parliament's office here locally. And again, if you do have questions or concerns, it's also very important to let your local representative know. And also she can help you with other things relating to Canada Pension Plan and those other things. So thank you for your public service. So really, folks, what I'm going to do is just really turn this over to both Peter and Chris. Let them maybe talk a little bit about their background, but also they have, many of you have already gotten the handout. And one other person I absolutely should introduce right here, Rob. Rob, can you wave at everyone, please? Rob is from my office, and he's been helping me put things together. So if there are questions that you have, or you have concerns that you would like to let me, if you'd like to email them to me after, if you've had some time to think about it, he can also get you in contact here. So I am going to be speaking a little bit later just from what I see with the legislation, but I think it's important for us to all have a grounded view by some people who are experts who work with our Income Tax Act every day, work with small entrepreneurs on these laws, and also have their perceptions. And Chris, Peter, can we please give them a big round of applause for coming up today?
Thank you, Dan, for having us. I'm Chris Brown, Peter McIntosh, and we're honored to be asked to be here today. So, before I start, I just want to say that the proposed changes are, every time we look at them, I think we find something new in the documents. There's accountants all over the country spending hundreds of hours looking at this information, and it is complex. So what we decided to do today is try and keep this at a fairly high level and provide some general information for you all. We'd be happy to answer questions when we're done. How did we get to this point? The March 2017 federal budget announced that the Department of Finance was studying certain aspects of taxation of small business firms. Income splitting the buildup of assets in a private corporation, and the conversion of dividends to capital gains were identified as issues under consideration. On July 18th, a consultation paper was received and issued. It identified several areas that the government wanted to make changes. Income splitting with adult family members was targeted. Specific items that were looked at were taxable dividends received on private corporation shares, income from a partnership or trust, in situations where there's sales or support to a business carried on by a related person, or a business or property rental in which a related person is actively engaged. Capital gains on the sale of private corporation shares to a non-arm's length individual. There's also proposals to change rules for children under the age, or young adults under the age of 25, with respect to income amounts that they would receive from private corporations. The government also is looking at imposing new rules on the conversion of income to capital gains rather than salary or dividends, transitioning of a family business from one generation to the next, tax treatment of passive income inside a corporation. So those are the areas that were targeted. Our comments on these proposals, and once again, I think there's a lot of shock for us when we looked at this information. It's very profound. Some of the corporate structures and rules that were being targeted have been in place for decades and are used by private corporations and businesses of all sizes. We don't feel that these were loopholes. Also, if the government's going to change its tax policy, we would hope that it would allow for a reasonable transition period and appropriate grandfathering. The consensus is that the proposed legislation, this is about consensus by accountants, by tax lawyers, this is the most complex and pervasive material we've ever seen. And as I'm looking at my presentation, I've said that twice because it's so important. Bottom of this page, the top of the next. If the legislation is passed as proposed, there's going to be large tax increases for families, not just for the wealthy, as has been suggested. There's also going to be significant problems for the transfer of family businesses. After reviewing these proposals, we've come up with several negative consequences that we think will be out there. Business owners will have less funds available for future investments and cushion against lean years. There's a potential of over 70% tax rate on investment income retained inside a corporation. There's a significant risk of double taxation on the death of a shareholder. In some situations, that flow-through tax rate will be over 19%. Inactive family members will be penalized for owning shares of the company. Increased accounting expenses will be incurred by many owners of corporations to try and deal with these rules. They're very, very technical. There's also going to be a much higher level of uncertainty as CRA will have much more discretion in challenging transactions and well-accepted planning strategies. What I'd like is for Peter to come up and just talk to the issues and some of the problems that we see with the target areas of the proposals.
Yeah, thanks for coming. I'm Peter McIntosh. I'm a tax partner with White Kennedy, and so I've had the pleasure to dive into the details of these rules and actually read the tax release. And you know, we can't stress enough that this is like a rewrite of the Income Tax Act. This is the biggest overhaul of the Income Tax Act that's happened since 1971. The Income Tax Act was rewritten in 1971 after the Carter Commission, which was almost a 10-year Royal Commission study. So when we get a little excited because we've got 75 days to process this, there's probably good reason. And So yeah, it's been a scramble to really understand all the impacts and what's going on. And so the process has certainly felt like it's been lacking, like we haven't had a chance to have true input. So Chris has mentioned the changes are pervasive, they are, and they really affect private corporations and small business owners from every angle. So I know that the main soundbite has been wealthy doctors and sprinkling income. The rules have much greater impact than that. They certainly affect how people pay themselves. They affect estate planning that's been in place for 30 years. They affect the tax bill when a shareholder dies of a corporation. They affect the tax bill if a founding member of a corporation wants to slow down and retire and not be active anymore. His tax bill goes way up. Really, the ramifications are extreme, and so that's why we felt compelled to, be out and part of the discussion and debate on what the tax rules are really trying to accomplish. So, once again, the main issue that we're hearing a lot about is income splitting, and so, maybe that's an area that needs to be looked at. But as part of tax policy, it's important that a business owner has some kind of upside for his risk. So the policies and the tax release is trying to kind of equate everybody as if you're a salaried employee. And there really is no recognition of the fact that a business owner actually is taking on additional risk, putting their house on the line by securing a bank loan, paying themselves last after they pay Canada Revenue Agency. So that's that really needs to be looked at. That's kind of the calling card for the proposals. But the rules to capture this one area once again are impacting estate planning. Once again, death of a shareholder. Like the net has been cast and is capturing so much that it's almost mind-boggling. So. In a lot of ways, I know that the comment has been made that it's just after the wealthy. Well, I have a lot of clients, and not very many of them are in the 1%. And so it is actually probably going to do way more damage to the emerging business, the struggling business, the business owner that isn't already making tons of money, because they can actually split income with a spouse. Their tax bill's going to go way up. They might actually just pack it in. We actually do have some clients that are considering that. We're like, why bother? Why go through the headaches? I'm just going to stop and I'll go get a job somewhere. So that's the main point. One to kind of impress upon everybody that the income splitting rules are way more dramatic than the government is actually describing. The next area was capital gains exemptions, and the way the rules are drafted is it's way more tax advantageous to sell your business to a stranger than it is to your son or your daughter. Way better. That doesn't seem right. That needs to be addressed. That's the result of that. You've heard probably in the news the issues that farmers potentially could have with handing their family farms down to the next generation. There's been very flexible rules for farmers to do that in the past. Well, they are shutting down a lot of that. And so that is one area that is going to be quite dramatic. If you have a huge tax bill on a family farm, there is no second generation family farmer. So that's, once again, another dramatic impact of the changes. I'll speak to... And I could speak to a lot of areas. I'm going to kind of keep my comments to just certain areas because you don't want me to get all technical because your eyes will glaze over and you'll leave. But the area of the tax treatment of passive income. So there's kind of two tax rates for a corporation. If you have active business income, you're doing an active activity. You have a low rate, and the existing tax rate for investment income inside a corporation is much higher. Now, the existing rules actually kind of work. I don't know why they're even trying to change them, you know. There's a mechanism where effectively you get a bunch of tax back if you pay a dividend out to an individual. So that system works. They're trying to change the system whereby the flow-through tax rate on investment income is going to reach 73%. So most of the upside is actually going to the government and not to the person taking the risk. I don't understand those rules. I don't know why they're even considering them. That'll kill basically investment, people investing out of their companies. And I deal with people that are entrepreneurs. And one thing I know about entrepreneurs is they do stuff. They do stuff all the time. They don't sit still. They buy rental properties. They do land developments. They just want to put their money to work. They don't sit on cash. I've already had discussions with clients whereby they're not. Why would they do anything if the majority of the upside is being taken away by an increased tax? So, you know, the concerns that I have are that the impact on economic activity for the country is going to be dramatic and swift, and I certainly hope the government understands that. The rules are ridiculously complex. I don't even know how we're going to apply them. Compliance costs for clients, so us actually figuring out how to file their tax returns, their costs are going to go up. And kind of another item that I'd like to note is that a lot of these rules are based on reasonableness tests that the government is trying to put into place. Well, I have to tell you, the last thing I want to do is sit across from an auditor and debate reasonableness. Because how it goes is it goes like this. I think this is reasonable. That auditor says, well, I think this is reasonable. And then they say, I'm going to reassess because I can. And then my client goes, well, what's the next step? And I said, well, probably tax court. And what they say is, I don't want to go there. I give up. So all these rules have an element of reasonableness test that we're going to have to argue. It's going to take 10 years in the tax courts to figure out what the word reasonable means. So that's a significant area of concern. You know, and trust me, I'm not looking for work, not this kind of work. I'd rather help people make money. So those are kind of some of the main themes that we wanted to raise. Like I said, there's a lot more impacts, a lot more technical impacts that are dramatic that I don't even know how we're going to deal with. But I'll leave you with the thought that once again, this is the biggest rewrite of the Income Tax Act since 1971. So what I'll do is I'll stop there. I'll pass the mic back to Dan, and we can take questions as necessary.
First of all, let's give them both a hand. So perhaps it might be good just to answer some preliminary questions, and I believe you gentlemen are going to be here until 7, is that correct? So why don't we just ask some basic questions about the government's proposal and their presentation tonight first, just so we all kind of get on the same playing field together. So do you guys just want to come up, just answer a couple of quick questions as they come up, and then we'll move on? Okay, Ernie first, and then we'll go to Kevin.
Excuse me. Next year is 50 years since Pierre Elliott Trudeau was elected. Some of you younger people don't know that, but a lot of you do because, well, I'm 76, so I remember it. But when he came in, the debt was only $16.8 billion. How long, when you look back, how long can you imagine we've been running a deficit and a debt in this country? Now, Dan's a pretty good guy here, but he's not a tough guy to guy in. I'm a bit of a redneck, and I'm not ashamed of it because I come by it honestly. I was in the military when Trudeau changed the military, put us all in one uniform. But listen, sorry fellas, I know exactly what you're going to say, but my wife and I, and a corporate lawyer, we launched a class action lawsuit against Revenue Canada for 2,500 long-haul truckers in 2002 to 2007 over the unfairness of the road meal expense claim. It took us a little bit of help with the Supreme Court of Canada, but we defeated Revenue Canada and changed the travel expense rules for more than 2 million Canadians in all occupations that travel earn their living. Now, I'm pretty sure I know what these fellows are going to talk about, but the thing is, if we don't get tough out here and say to Ottawa and the freeloaders back there, it's going to be the same old thing. And I just hope that you'll think about this. You just can't keep going along to get along. You've got to stand up and say, hey, we've had enough. Quebec's going to pick up $11 billion in transfer payments this year. $11 billion. And if you don't know what transfer payments are, you better get on into the Google it and find out, because it's really serious. So I don't want to go on too long because I get wound up here. But think about it. We've got to stand up and say enough's enough. If you don't like the way we're doing, we better get the hell out and look after the West. And the hell of those freeloaders back there who are screwing us every day of the week. Sorry, but that's how I feel about it.
Tell us what you think. So just again, because we really want to engage, because we have both Chris and Peter here from a professional viewpoint, just giving their opinions here. Just let's focus on what they have said as far as in answering questions that you have about the proposal. Kevin, you had a question?
Hi, thanks very much for coming down here and helping to make this clear for a lot of us, because, I'm not sure myself. So this is a question for myself of local supporting locals. I actually incorporated it. It's an LTD. I did it just to protect the name so somebody else wouldn't take it. But regardless, it's incorporated now. But I'm also a business owner that's below the $30,000 mark. So now how does this tax affect a business like myself?
You know, one of the big impacts is that if you have a spouse that you try to split some income with, then it'll one of the big impacts is that, let's say the unfortunate happens and then you pass away owning a company. Well, your estate can have a much higher tax bill. And some of the situations we see is that people can walk into triple tax. They own a company, they die, they have a tax bill, they have a real estate property inside the company, they sell it, they pay tax inside the company, that's twice. And then they need to get the money out of the company to actually pay the tax bill, that's tax again, so that's triple tax. So that's some of the situations people can walk into, is actually, with these new rules, they can walk into like a 93% tax rate after death. Any small business owner can walk into that issue now. Below 30,000, if you're really not leaving anything in your company, then there is no advantage to having a company. And that's what people need to understand as well, is that how the tax system is set up is that it's set up so that if you earn money through a company, you pay tax on a company, pay it out to yourself, pay tax again. The tax bill of earning in that as salary directly, those two tax bills are the same. So it's called integration, and it works. So I don't quite know why they're changing things that are working, other than to say that perhaps they have a spending issue. But integration works. I mentioned that the passive income rules work. There's a good system in place that meets the motivations they have for tax policy, and they work. So, sorry, long-winded answer to your question, but some things to think about.
Is it a supplemental question? Yeah. Okay, just a quick one.
Okay, yeah, just another quick one here. Because they keep wanting to implement more taxes because they said they got to pay the debt, basically the way the spending has gone for the past two previous governments here. But what are your thoughts here with the Canadian government no longer borrowing from the Bank of Canada from 1976 here and incurring this debt where we didn't have that before? What are your thoughts on that?
That's a good question for me. Okay, we had a gentleman in the back. Chris, do you want to ask a question? Just specifically on it. And folks, again, we do want to make sure that everyone has a crystal clear understanding of what the proposal are, and then we'll move on together.
Yeah. So, my name is Chris. I run a small business here in town. One of the things about the 64-page bomb that was dropped on us, you alluded to, there's a lot of uncertainty about the reasonableness test. It's used a lot through a lot of language through the whole proposal. Talks about what's reasonable, and I'm not a tax expert, but I looked at it and I'm like, this is not black and white. This is very, 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 very vague. And my question for you is there anything in the existing income tax system that has, I'm sure there's reasonableness tests, but is there anything in the existing income tax system where reasonableness tests are specified in detail? Are there any precedents for this sort of reasonableness tests that they're talking about? Have you seen anything like that anywhere else in the Income Tax Act that we could use as a precedent to get a bit of certainty on what's being discussed here?
So yeah, good question. Yeah, so I would say there are some other reasonableness tests that are out there, but obviously they're in the concept. The issue with the reasonableness test is that it's all based on the facts, and the facts can get interpreted entirely differently by myself and a CRA auditor. So there are reasonableness tests. I would say there's a couple, and they're very specific and limited to a certain context. Reasonableness tests are always dictated by tax court litigation, right? So once again, a taxpayer pushes it to tax court, and when you go to tax court, actually the rules of the game change. You're in front of a judge, and the Department of Justice has to actually play nice, and everybody's on an even playing field. So it takes going to that extent to actually have that definition defined, or that reasonableness test. It's a big concern that we have probably 3 or 4 different new reasonableness tests out there, creating a lot of ambiguity, and it's going to be extremely challenging to comply with the Income Tax Act. I don't know why the government doesn't think it through. They're going to need a whole host of new auditors, and the cost is going to go up to actually administer the tax system. So, but to answer your question, there is a very limited amount of reasonableness tests that exist. But everyone has to get, every individual test always has to get tested in the courts.
I just wanted to mention that with respect to these reasonability tests, for the tax on split income proposed changes, if a spouse is getting an allocation of a dividend, say $20,000, doesn't have any other income, they might have paid they would have paid very little tax on that under the current rates. But the tax rate on that dividend would be 40% going forward, if that was deemed to be unreasonable. So this reasonableness concept is a huge deal, right? And maybe it would make sense if it was deemed unreasonable that it would be taxed at the other spouse's marginal rate, but that's not what's on the table. It's going straight to the highest possible tax rate.
Hi, I just want to comment quickly on the reasonable test. It's a smokescreen. Anyone who's a lawyer or accountant, no offense or anything, but the more ambiguous and complicated things are, the more options we have and the more you can find your way. My name's Jared Lobley. I'm a family doctor. I moved here from Montreal to Winnipeg, bought a small vineyard, I run a bed and breakfast, and I have a rock band that I travel around the world with, and I talk about these kind of issues. My question here is, what are Moreau's interests in pension funds?
I would suggest the gentleman, because again, this is, first of all, it's being taped, and we're in the public. No one here has any parliamentary privilege, including myself, so just putting that out there.
Yeah, and I don't want to, put forth any kind of conspiracy theory or anything. I really don't. Our point, really what we want to do here is just kind of explain kind of the dramatic impact of the tax changes. That being said, immediately, one of the main planning opportunities is to set up an individual pension plan in a company as one of the last planning opportunities, and obviously that directly links to Morneau Chappelle. Once again, I don't want to, which is Bill Morneau's company. I don't want to really go there, but I'll let you connect the dots however you want.
Rick, you wanted to come and ask a question?
Hey, I don't think I need that. I'd just like to know in this draft, is there any targeted implementation date? Is retroactivity considered in this material? And or is there any transition for people? It's nice for the government to get its house in order, but is there any transition allowance in this proposed draft material for individuals to have a transition?
I can comment on a couple of the things there. The proposed transition, or the proposed implementation date for the tax on split income would be January 1st, 2018. There's also rules that were coming into effect with respect to the utilization of the lifetime capital gains exemption. Those are also January 1st, 2018. Then we did have some more complex rules, which I'm going to pass the mic over to Peter to discuss, and there is an element of retroactivity there. Also, July 18th, 2017 is the effective date for some of the rules that are being proposed to be changed.
Yeah, I won't dive into those rules because obviously your eyes will glaze over, but they have to do with non-arm's like transfers of shares of the company, and so unfortunately, a lot of people that are in the middle of a transaction don't know what to do because the retroactive date is actually going back to July 18th. So that's kind of the best way to describe that one.
Craig.
I have a small business that is currently a sole proprietorship, and I was going to be incorporating this coming year. Now I'm wondering, is it even worth it? Because it's less than, I think, $90,000 a year is the profit at the end of every year. Is it worth it to incorporate with these rule changes?
One thing I want to comment, I'll just comment on something real quick and then I'll hand over the mic to Chris. So one of the comments by the government is that there's been a proliferation of private corporations. They're saying as tax planning tools. One of the main reasons why you incorporate is actually to limit liability. So when I have clients and they're doing different activities, I have them set up a multiple amount of companies. So if they get sued over here, they don't lose everything over here. So that has never been stated by the government of why you would want multiple corporations. So the first thing you want to look at is what kind of business am I in? And do I want all my